Hey everyone, it's Hannah here, and oh my gosh, do I have such a good story for you today. So, a few weeks ago, I finally worked up the courage to walk into an American barbershop for the very first time. And let me tell you, it was way more intimidating than I ever expected. I had absolutely no idea what words to use to describe the haircut I wanted. I didn't understand half of what the barber was asking me. And there was this whole unspoken culture inside that barbershop that I knew nothing about. But by the time I walked out with the freshest haircut I've ever had in my life, I had picked up so much vocabulary about haircuts and grooming in America that you are genuinely going to find super helpful. So if you've ever walked past a barbershop feeling too nervous to go in because you didn't know what to say, this story is literally made for you. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's how this whole thing started. I'd been in America for about 6 weeks, and my hair was getting really long and honestly pretty messy. Back home, I always went to the same guy who cut my hair for years, so I never had to explain anything because he just knew exactly what I wanted. But here in America, I had to start completely from scratch with someone brand new in a language that wasn't my first language, using vocabulary I'd never even thought about before. My coworker David noticed my hair one day and said, "Bro, you really need to hit up a barber shop." I laughed it off, but honestly felt a little self-conscious after that. Hit up, by the way, is a very common American slang phrase that just means to visit a place or contact someone. So, hit up a barbershop simply means go to a barbershop. David recommended this place nearby called Precision Cuts, and he said it was really good, and the barbers there were super patient with new customers. That last part made me feel a little better, so I decided to go the following Saturday morning. Before going, I spent a whole evening on my phone trying to figure out the vocabulary I'd need. The first thing I realized is that in America, there's actually a difference between a barbershop and a hair salon, and knowing which one to go to matters. A barbershop is traditionally a place for men's haircuts and grooming services. The person who cuts your hair there is called a barber. Barbers are specifically trained and licensed to cut men's hair, trim and shape beards, and do straight razor shaves. A hair salon, on the other hand, is more commonly associated with women's haircuts, coloring, and styling, though many salons do cut men's hair too. The vibe, which means the atmosphere and feeling of a place, is very different between the two. Barbershops tend to have this cool social community feeling where guys sit around talking about sports and music while waiting. Salons feel a little more formal and quiet in comparison. Since I wanted a classic men's haircut, the barbershop was definitely the right place for me. I also spent time looking up different haircut terms because I knew the barber was going to ask me what I wanted, and I needed to have an answer ready. Back home, when I got my hair cut, I used to just say something like, "Cut it shorter, please," and point at my head, and that usually worked fine. But I quickly realized that in America, "cut it shorter" is way too vague and wouldn't get me the specific result I wanted. American barbers use very precise language to understand exactly what style you're going for. I found out there are so many different terms I needed to learn before even sitting in that chair. I grabbed a notebook and started writing them all down so I wouldn't forget when I was actually in the moment and feeling nervous. Saturday morning arrived and I drove over to Precision Cuts. When I pulled up outside, I could already hear music coming from inside and see the classic red, white, and blue barber pole spinning slowly outside the front door. A barber pole is that iconic striped rotating cylinder you see outside barbershops all over America. It's been a symbol of barbershops for hundreds of years, and you'll recognize it immediately once you know what it is. I took a deep breath, pushed open the door, and walked in. The first thing I noticed was how lively and warm the atmosphere was. There were 4 barber chairs lined up facing a long mirror, and 3 of them were occupied with customers getting their hair cut. A few other guys were sitting in the waiting area on a bench along the wall, scrolling their phones and relaxing. One of the barbers looked up from what he was doing, nodded at me with a smile, and said, "What's up? Just grab a seat, we'll be with you in a minute." What's up is a very casual American greeting that's short for what's up, which itself means how are you? Or just hello. It's super informal, and you hear it constantly in relaxed, casual settings like barbershops. I sat down in the waiting area and took in everything around me. There was a TV on the wall showing a sports highlight show, and 2 of the barbers were having this animated conversation with their customers about last night's basketball game. This is one of the most distinctly American barbershop things I noticed. The barbershop is a social space, not just a place to get your hair cut. People talk freely, joke around, debate about sports, share opinions, and genuinely enjoy themselves while they're there. It felt really cool and comfortable once I relaxed a little bit. I noticed each barber station had a large mirror in front of the chair, a shelf with all kinds of tools and products lined up neatly, and a little cabinet underneath. There were clippers, scissors, combs, brushes, spray bottles, and rows of hair products like pomades and gels. After about 15 minutes, one of the barbers finished up with his customer, and that customer got up, looked at himself in the mirror, and said, "That's fire, bro," which is American slang for saying something looks really amazing or impressive. The barber laughed and said, "I got you," meaning I took care of you, I did a good job for you. Then the barber looked over at the waiting area and made eye contact with me. He patted the chair with his hand and said, "Come on up," which means come over here and sit down in the barber chair. I got up and walked over, feeling my heart beating a little faster. I climbed into the big leather barber chair, and he swung a cape around my shoulders and fastened it at the back of my neck. The cape is that large fabric covering that protects your clothes from getting covered in cut hair. He looked at me in the mirror and said, "So what are we doing today?" Which is the standard way American barbers ask what kind of haircut you want. And this was the moment I had been preparing for and dreading at the same time. I took a breath and said, "I want to fade on the sides and keep some length on top." He nodded like this made total sense, which was a relief. But then he started asking follow-up questions that I needed to know the answers to. A fade is one of the most popular men's haircut styles in America right now. It means the hair on the sides and back of your head gradually gets shorter and shorter as it goes down toward your neck, creating a smooth blending effect from longer hair at the top to very short or even skin at the bottom. There are different types of fades depending on where on your head the blending starts. A low fade starts the gradual shortening effect near the bottom of the head, right above the ears and neck. A mid-fade starts the blending effect in the middle section of the sides. And a high fade starts very close to the top of the head, leaving very little length on the sides at all. He asked me, "What kind of fade are you thinking? Low, mid, or high?" And I said, "Mid-fade, please," because that seemed like the most balanced option based on the photos I'd looked at online. Then he asked, "And what number do you want on the sides?" I had done my research on this one too, so I knew what he meant. Barbers use clipper guards, which are plastic attachments that go on the electric haircutting tool called clippers, to control exactly how short the hair gets cut. Each guard has a number that corresponds to a specific hair length. A number 1 guard leaves the hair very, very short, barely any length at all. Number 2 is a bit longer. Number 3 is a little more, and so on, all the way up to higher numbers that leave significantly more length. I told him I wanted a number 2 on the sides, blending up to a number 3 toward the top to create that gradual fade effect. He nodded and said, "Got you," which is barber speak for understood. I know exactly what you want. He picked up the clippers and started working on the sides of my head. The clippers make this buzzing sound, and honestly, once I felt how smooth and controlled his movements were, I immediately felt way more relaxed. While he was cutting, he asked me, "You want me to taper the back?" A taper is similar to a fade, but it specifically refers to the back of the neck area, where the hair is cut to gradually get shorter right at the neckline. Without a taper, the hair at the back of your neck can look uneven or shaggy where it meets your skin. I said yes, absolutely. Then he asked if I wanted a hard part or a natural part. A part is the line on your head where your hair is separated and styled to either side. A hard part is a very clean, sharp line shaved or cut into the hair to create a defined separation that looks very crisp and deliberate. A natural part is softer and follows the direction your hair grows naturally without being precisely shaved in. I went with a natural part because I wasn't sure I was ready for the boldness of a hard part just yet. After he finished the sides with the clippers, he switched to a pair of scissors to work on the top of my hair, which I wanted to keep a little longer. He combed through the hair on top and used his fingers to pinch sections of hair upward and then cut them to an even length. This technique, where you hold hair between your fingers and cut along the tops of your fingers, is called point cutting, or just scissor over comb, and it creates texture and movement in the hair rather than a blunt, flat look. While he was doing this, he asked, "You want me to thin it out a little? You got pretty thick hair." I asked what that meant, and he explained that thinning means using special thinning scissors to remove some of the bulk and weight from thick hair, making it lie flatter and more manageable without dramatically changing the overall length. Since my hair was indeed really thick and heavy, I said, "Yes, please." He put down the scissors and picked up a spray bottle filled with water and misted my hair lightly to make it easier to work with. A spray bottle is one of those bottles with a pump nozzle that sprays a fine mist of water. Then he grabbed what are called thinning shears, which look like regular scissors, except one of the blades has little teeth or notches cut into it instead of being completely straight. These thinning shears remove only some of the hair, rather than all of it, which reduces bulk without changing the length dramatically. It was so interesting watching him work and slowly learning what all the different tools were called. After thinning out the top, he stood back, looked at my hair in the mirror critically, and made a few final adjustments with the scissors. Next came a part I hadn't fully anticipated. He picked up a small electric tool that was much smaller and more precise than the big clippers. He said, "I'm going to clean up your edges now." This smaller tool is called an edger or trimmer, and it's used for very precise, detailed work around the hairline. Cleaning up your edges means using the trimmer to create super sharp, clean lines along your forehead hairline, around your temples, and along the sides of your face. The edge up or line up is the process of defining and straightening those hairline edges so they look perfectly geometric and crisp, rather than natural and uneven. This is a really important finishing step in an American barbershop cut, and it makes a massive difference in how clean and polished the overall look is. He worked slowly and carefully around my hairline with the trimmer, and I could see in the mirror how dramatically it transformed the overall look of the haircut. Then he asked something I wasn't expecting at all. He said, "You want me to do anything with your beard?" Now I had a little bit of stubble on my face, maybe 4 or 5 days of growth. I hadn't really thought about it, but since I was already there, I figured, why not? He recommended a beard trim to clean it up and make it look more intentional. A beard trim means cutting the beard to an even length and shaping it neatly. He asked if I wanted my neckline cleaned up, which means the line at the bottom of the beard where it meets your neck. A clean neckline means the beard ends at a defined, shaved line rather than just growing messily into the neck area. I said yes to all of it, feeling like I might as well go all in. He used a combination of the clippers and the trimmer to shape my stubble into something that actually looked intentional and sharp, rather than just lazy. Then he picked up a small straight razor blade for the very precise edges around the beard lines. A straight razor, also sometimes called a straight edge, is an incredibly sharp single blade that barbers use for very fine detail work to create those perfectly crisp lines. Watching him use it so confidently, so close to my face, was honestly a little nerve-wracking, but he clearly knew exactly what he was doing. After finishing the beard, he took a soft brush and swept all the loose hair clippings off my face, neck, and ears. Then he reached for a bottle of what looked like lotion and said, "I'm going to put some aftershave on you, cool?" Aftershave is a liquid or lotion applied to skin after shaving or razor work that soothes the skin, prevents irritation, and smells really good. I said sure, not knowing quite what to expect. He patted it onto my neck and around my jawline, and oh wow. It had this cool, slightly tingly sensation that felt amazing after the razor work. Then he reached for a jar on his shelf and said, "Let me put a little pomade in the top to style it." Pomade is a hairstyling product that gives your hair a glossy or matte finish while holding it in place. There are different kinds: water-based pomade, which washes out easily with just water, and oil-based pomade, which gives a stronger hold and glossier shine, but is harder to wash out. He worked a small amount through the top of my hair with his fingers and shaped it into place. He spun the chair around so I was facing the big mirror directly and said, "What do you think?" which is a casual American way of saying, "What do you think? Do you like it?" I looked at myself in the mirror and honestly felt like a completely different person in the best possible way. It looked so clean, so sharp, so professional. I told him it looked incredible, and he grinned and said, "That's what I'm talking about," which is an enthusiastic American expression of satisfaction. He then held up a small hand mirror and angled it so I could see the back of my head in the big mirror behind me. This is standard practice in American barbershops, showing the customer the back view to make sure they're completely happy before considering the job done. I gave him a thumbs up, and he unsnapped the cape from my neck and shook all the cut hair off it. I climbed out of the chair and walked to the counter to pay. He told me the haircut plus beard trim came to $28 total. Before I paid, he asked, "You want to book your next appointment?" I didn't know that barbershops also offered advance appointments. I'd assumed it was always walk-in, only where you just show up and wait. He explained that they do accept appointments if you want to guarantee your spot with a specific barber, but they also take walk-ins, which means people who show up without a prior booking. I decided to book an appointment for 6 weeks later so I could come back to the same barber. Then the question of tipping came up because just like at a restaurant, you're expected to tip your barber in America. The standard tip for a barber in America is typically between 15 and 20% of the total cost. Some people tip a flat $5, others do 20%. Since the service was honestly amazing and I felt so happy with the result, I tipped him $7, bringing my total to $35. He thanked me genuinely and said, "See you in 6 weeks, man." And I walked out of there feeling like an absolute $1,000,000. Looking back on that whole barbershop experience, I laugh at how nervous I was walking in compared to how comfortable I felt walking out. I learned that a barbershop is a social community space where men get haircuts from trained, licensed barbers. A fade is that signature gradual blending of hair length from top to sides. Clipper guard numbers tell the barber exactly how short to cut with electric clippers. A taper cleans up the back neckline area. An edge up or line up creates sharp, clean lines along your hairline. Thinning shears reduce bulk in thick hair. Pomade styles and holds hair in place. Aftershave soothes the skin after razor work. Walk-in means no appointment needed, just show up. And always tip your barber 15 to 20% because they work really hard and their skill is genuinely impressive when you see it up close. These are words and phrases that make walking into any American barbershop feel completely natural and confident rather than scary and overwhelming. So that's my complete first barbershop story. From nervously pushing open that door, not knowing a single haircut term, to walking out looking fresh and actually understanding everything that happened during the whole experience. It was honestly such a great day. If this story helped you feel more confident about getting a haircut in America, please go ahead and hit that like button right now. And if you're loving Hannah's daily vocabulary stories from real life in the United States, make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications, because I drop a brand new story every single day. Each one is packed with real vocabulary from real situations that you actually need to know. I will see you in tomorrow's video with another adventure from my American life. Keep learning, stay confident, and remember that every new experience is just another chance to pick up vocabulary that makes you sound more like a local. See you next time. Take care.